So recently I was just looking over an old action plan that was Uniting for Solutions Beyond Shelter. People may remember this if they've been working on homelessness for a while. It was an attempt in 2003 to get lots of stakeholders together to try to look at how we are maybe managing homelessness instead of trying to end it, and try to look at the resources that we have and redirect them to ways that would actually work towards ending homelessness. We revamped ourselves in 2007 based on this, and I'm just going to go into it by giving you an overview of DHS, how we revamped it, and how housing is working now. So DHS has a few departments. In adults, there is what used to be the outreach unit, and now is renamed as Street Homelessness Solutions, and it includes outreach, drop-ins, respites, safe havens, and stabilization beds. So when we revamped outreach in 2006-07, it was mainly to change the way outreach worked, to go from contacts to housing chronically street homeless clients. And so those kind of loaded terms, so just break it down a little bit. There was previously 16 teams, overlapping responsibilities. We reinstituted the contracts together with DHS and DOHMH. To have 4 teams, 1 per borough. Brooklyn and Queens are together to try to stop the overlap and have more accountability. A main big change is to target the most chronic and most vulnerable clients out there on the streets. So it's a worst first approach. And you know, we live in a resource constrained world, and how are we going to have the most impact? How are we going to really you know, save the most lives and reduce the amount of people living on the street? And the one way to do that, we've kind of come to, is to get the people that without intervention, without extraordinary help, would not be able to resolve their own homelessness. We also expanded, based on client input, the kind of housing that they would come directly into, the kind of transitional settings they would come directly into. And really, plainly speaking, they don't want curfew. And there's been a lot of experimentation by different providers about how to do that. We call them safe havens. There's also stabilization beds where we just straight rent units at the YMCAs and other places. But basically, it's the minimum amount of rules necessary. We've, like I said, added almost 500 safe haven beds, and we flex the stabilization beds because we're just renting them, so in the winter we have a little bit more. Try to do what we can to leverage the money to try to save as many lives as possible. And our permanent housing right now, you'll see at the bottom point, you maybe will notice that a lot is missing what used to be there. There used to be Section 8, there used to be Advantage, there used to be other options that are no longer on the table. But our #1 option is supportive housing for these chronically street homeless, vulnerable clients. DHS has centralized housing, and many of you know there's these contracts, the 60-40 contracts, where 60% are given to interviews from DHS and 40 to the community. For New York 1 and 2, about 70% go to the general shelter population. There's, you know, now over 8,000, I didn't check this morning, people, single adults in shelter right now. And 30% go to the street homeless clients, street chronic clients. But for New York 3, about half are going, half of the interview opportunities are going currently towards our programs. Also, when MOC is an acronym for the Manhattan Outreach Consortium, they won the bidding for the Manhattan Outreach contract, and they're a consortium of many providers. I see a lot of you actually in the house here. As part of their application, they team together with providers, and some of their buildings are filled exclusively by the outreach teams. One of the ways that DHS tries to constrain choice for a housing provider is to try to give 3 applications for 1 vacancy. We try to not have, street clients going up against shelter clients. They're different populations, so we try to have street clients interviewing all together and shelter clients interviewing all together. And within our programs, we weigh the different size of the programs for an allocation of the interview opportunities that we get within DHS. So we've had some great progress, and I think it's worth bragging about. Since 2007, we've had a tremendous amount of placements. We've been able to develop very successful programs that ring out not only for their placement abilities, but also their retention abilities. And the clients are choosing to come in, and they has a positive feedback loop. They can tell their friends on the street, no, this is something different. This is something that can work for us. And it's borne out on some decreases on the street. Obviously, they're not where we want to go. We're not done. We have a lot more work to do. And as I mentioned with this United for Solutions Beyond Shelter, the goal was a 5-year, 2/3 reduction in street homelessness. We're not there, but we've seen a good reduction, and we have faith that, more than faith, we have an understanding that we're headed in the right direction if we could double down and keep going with our targeting efforts. So why get involved in this mission to reduce chronic street homelessness? And as a provider, why should you get involved? For all the placements that we've made since the contracts were redesigned, there's an over 90% retention rate. Very successful. In the transitional settings that clients are coming into, the safe havens and stabilization beds, we're seeing tremendous reduction of people's symptoms, and there's actually a growing amount of time that clients have been staying in these transitional settings due to a lack of affordable housing options for them. And while this is not how we designed the program, it does mean that a housing provider is getting a client that's had more opportunities to take advantage of the resource-intensive services that are there in transitional settings. And so they're ostensibly more stabilized. The outreach teams give a year of aftercare, and in being part of this mission, you're really working to change the dynamic of homelessness, to say, you know, that we as a society are going to have a floor that's not concrete on the street corner, that we are really making progress on this. And as you know, if you can get involved with this, you can see real differences in the community and in these individuals. So notice I didn't say it's the easiest thing to do or the most fun thing to do. And I think we'll get into how we can learn to do better next.